All right, so I'm going to show you how to animate a document to make it look neat, so it kind of helps out with some storytelling. So let's say that I already have my folder already created, and I have my elements right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down a background image like so, and it could be any image that you choose, whatever you want, and I'm going to make it the length that I want. I'm just going to go with 22 seconds just for the heck of it. And then let's say your document is up here, and I'm going to grab my document. And if you have a PDF like this one is, and you just want one page of it, you're going to hit Option F on a Mac on the page that you want, and it's going to create a still image of that particular page. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it to make sure that it covers up the entire area. And then I'm going to start at the beginning of my timeline because the beginning is where everything will begin. And then we are going to move it to the kind of area that we want it to be zoomed in on. For instance, at the beginning, I want it to start and I want it to start off small. So I'm going to go over here into my tools. Now, if you are unfamiliar with this area over here, you have a bunch of different options. For instance, your colors, and then your moving pictures. So what I'm going to do is go down to the transform part, make sure that my timeline is at the beginning of this part, and then I'm going to go over to scale all, and I'm going to minimize that to have it start off small. And then what I'm going to do is I want to add a little bit of rotation just to give it a little bit of animation. Now keep in mind, when we made it smaller like this and we brought it down to 54, you're going to want to mark the beginning of your timeline, and you do so by hitting add a keyframe. Now I also want to make it a little bit of a rotation like I was saying there. So I'm going to move it in rotation like that, and then I'm going to hit my keyframe because remember, every single thing that I do right now is right where this key is. So that's the beginning of the document. And you'll notice that if I move it more and more and more, that is just going to continue to be the same until I change it. So let's say right here is where I want the animation to stop at 14 seconds. I'm then going to let my pin go, and I'm going to see that it's just standing right there. And so then I'm going to go back over here to transform, and then I'm going to go over to scale again, and I'm going to zoom in and make it larger like so. And so I have it at 95%. I'm going to hit my little keyframe there. Notice how sometimes this happens. Now this is a good thing that it happened because you'll notice that it went back to 54. Why did I go back to 54? I have no clue. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it back to where I want it to be by hitting scale all. I'm going to go to 95, why not? And then it's already with my keyframe there. But then I also want to straighten it out, or at least move it around so it kind of provides a little bit more animation. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit more like so. And then I'm going to make sure to hit my keyframe just so it, see, did it again. My Final Cut every so often does this to me. It likes to make sure that I'm paying attention. So I'm going to, so look, a third time is a charm there. I'm going to get like that. And let's see if I do it. There we go. And it'll stay just how it is. So now you can see a preview if you were to just kind of like move your keyframe back, see how it's animating like so. And what I'm going to do is, what I really like to do with documents is I like to add in a shadow here and there. So I'm going to go over to my effects, and your effects are right here. I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to type in shadow. And then I'm going to take drop shadow, and then I'm going to pull it over into the document, and you'll notice that it provided a shadow there. What I'm going to do now is I want to render it just so it makes a little bit faster. So I'm going to go up to render all and then hit that and let it render. You can see that your render time is right about there. And so it'll take a little while to render depending on the fastness of your processor. My computer is a little bit slower, which is fine because with documents and animations, you have to make sure to give yourself more time to do this stuff so it goes through. So I really don't have to wait for the full thing to go to give you guys an example because you'll know how exactly how to do this once you start rendering it. But what I want to show you is then I want to go to the beginning, and let's say, oh boy, at about maybe 4 seconds in, I want to have some bigger text pop up. So it goes to 4 seconds, I stop it there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my own text. Let's say the document says, have a nice day. So I'm going to go over here to my effects, my text effects, and my character generators. I'm going to go to generator, and then I'm going to select custom, and I'm going to drop custom in right about there. And notice how it is a black screen. Now, the nice thing with custom is that you can customize it, give it its name, and I'm going to go over here to where my effects are, transform, etc. Notice this new one over here. Now, that's the generator one, and that only works if you have something that comes from the generator tool. And so let's say I want to make this dark blue. So I'm going to go over here to my colors, and I'm going to select a bluish color. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to go over to blue, and then I'm going to make it dark. I want to make it darker just because I feel like it. And so now what I'm going to do is that because it's still taking up the full screen, I'm going to go back over here and make sure that this is selected. And I'm going to click on the video tool, and then I'm going to crop it from the bottom, and then I'm going to crop it from the top, and crop a little bit from the left, and a little bit from the right. And just to make it a little bit kind of neater, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the opacity down so it's a little see-through so you can kind of see the document. Now notice how the background right here with this image, this background image, a lot of the stuff you might download from Getty Images, etc., might not be full screen. So to change that, all you'd have to do is select the image, and then you go up to Scale All, and then make the size bigger like that. So now that I have this here, I'm going to then want to put in some text. So I'm going to go right back up here to this area, and I'm going to select Titles above Generator, and then I'm going to select whichever font you like to use. Most of the time, I would say 9 out of 10 times, I go with what is it called? This is like the most generic. It's called Basic. That's what it is. So now I'm going to drop this down here, and I'm going to zoom in on my timeline to make sure that it is working well with the. There we go. Make sure that it's all paired up with your generator there. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on it, and I have the title right there. And when I double clicked on it, brought up this, and you'll notice this part right here, show the text inspector. And I'm going to change the title to say, "Have a nice day." Now from there, I can select it. I can change my font. Let's say we want it to look like that. I can make it larger, and then make it like that. And then I kind of want to make sure that it's centered, so I'm going to go over to the video effects tool, and I drop it down just like that. So we have it there saying, "Have a nice day." And I'm going to go to the end over here to make sure that now this is where it lines up. Let's say I only want, this amount with it. So I'm going to cut those ones out and this one out just to be safe. Delete that. And then I will just have this to work with. Now, because when this part comes in, you do not want it to, you don't want it to just like pop up like that, because that kind of looks, So what I'll do is I'll go over here into my, instead of video effects, I'll click on transitions. I'll go to transitions, and let's say we just do something like, why don't we just do a simple cross dissolve? You can play around with whatever you want. You'll get a better idea of it. So I'm going to drop those in there, so that'll fade in. And then I'm going to go back up, and then I'm going to hit Render All. And this time, it might take a little while to render something like this, just because there's a lot of effects involved. So you know how to render. I'm going to stop that there so we don't have to worry about it, so it doesn't take up too much of our time. But then what I'm going to do is I am then going to take my timeline, let's say it is rendered. And then what I'm going to do is you'll be able to see it in full screen, how it looks, and I'm just going to make it full. And look at this. We have an animated document popping up, and it says, "Have a nice day." That's not too difficult. But after you play around with it for a little while, like if I had more time, I might drop in a shadow behind that blue box to make it have a little bit more depth. So there's a lot of things that you can do with it, and I hope that this helps.